view of Antarctica from space. It's pretty awesome. Not as awesome as Fridays. I'm Carl Azuz. Today's edition of CNN Student News takes off right now. First up, California firefighters get a little help from humidity in their efforts to contain the station fire. This thing has been burning for more than a week. Yesterday, it was about 38% under control. Officials expect to have it completely contained by September 15th. Rob Marciano shows us how part of the battle against this blaze is being waged in the sky.
Fighting the fire from the air, choppers, turboprops, even jets. But this is the big kahuna.
We have more excess horsepower than any tanker out there.
Captain Cliff Hale hit the California wildfires hard this week, flying this modified 747 supertanker right into the fire zone.
He arms it, and that gives me control up here, or the other pilot as well. We've got a drop button right here on the switch.
Flying low at 300 feet, Captain Hale has to focus on his target.
You've got to be a pilot and a bit of a marksman. How good a shot are you?
Pretty good at this point.
A touch of pilot bravado, but at his core, he's a firefighter.
To me, it's all the pilots that are doing this are just like the regular firefighters that you see anywhere, and it's just we do it in the air.
But nothing compares to this jumbo jet.
If you were a passenger on a 747, this is where you'd be sitting. Instead, on this plane, they've got 10 tanks carrying 20,000 gallons of fire retardant and/or foam, 90 tons of firefighting artillery.
And these cannons also have control.
They can meter it to any distance and any thickness that the firefighters on the ground want.
Adjustable power and precision, which reduces wasted ammunition.
This stuff's not cheap.
It's not. It'll run anywhere from $2 to $3 a gallon.
All of this is unleashed in the back of the plane.
Some fancy-looking bomb bay doors.
Well, these are the exhaust ports for the retardant, and the flight engineer is going to choose the proper air pressure and the number of exhaust ports to vary the concentration depending on what the firefighters on the ground need.
On the ground or in the air, it's one big team.
All the guys that do this to me I think are the best, and it's an honor to be a part of that group.
No doubt this massive supertanker is a welcome weapon in the war against wildfires. Rob Marciano, CNN, Sacramento.
So just how big is the station fire? Well, you can see it from space. A NASA satellite took these shots of the blaze on Sunday. What you're looking at is the smoke from the flames, along with some clouds created by the fire. The satellite image shows it drifting for more than 100 miles across the state. Well, staying in the sky, but shifting over to the International Space Station, a pair of astronauts took a walk outside yesterday. It was the second of 3 scheduled spacewalks during the Shuttle Discovery's mission to the ISS. The plan for yesterday was to swap out the station's ammonia tanks, installing a full one and stowing the empty one for the trip back home to Earth. It's pretty standard stuff, at least for NASA, but the space agency is getting really excited about a new video. It calls it the coolest of its kind. That may be kind of a clever pun because this video is a look at some of the coldest spots on the planet and how they've changed over time. Josh Levs talks with NASA's Tom Wagner about the technology behind all this.
This is an image of Antarctica, and what you're going to see right away is a Landsat data compilation that takes all the Landsat imagery and makes a neat map of Antarctica. And we're zooming in on the Ross Ice Shelf, where iceberg B-15, which is the size of Long Island, broke off a few years ago. This iceberg was so big it actually blocked off McMurdo, the main U.S. base.
Now talk to me about how this was taken. I know that you have satellite images, but there's also some animation in here, right? How was this done?
What this was done was taking satellite imagery from a whole bunch of different satellites, and a lot of scientists and graphic artists at Goddard spent some time putting it together to make this kind of seamless video. You're looking at like 5 or 10 different satellite images here that are put just all streamed together. And also what you're coming up to now is the Larsen Ice Shelf, which is an area the size of Rhode Island that collapsed catastrophically a few years ago. It literally tumbled away like dominoes. And this ice shelf had been stable for about 10,000 years before this.
What you're also telling me is that you can tell from this the way weather in one little corner of the world impacts the rest of the world. How do we see that?
Right, and that's one of the neat things about this video, is showing how things are connected up. What you're seeing here is the sea ice cover around Antarctica, but if you also talk about the sea ice on the northern ice cap of the world, and what we do is we use images like this to connect how the icy regions of the world are changing with regards to changes happening in our climate overall.
In fact, let's skip to the third section of video I have here as you talk about this, because look at what you guys show about Denver right there. Tell them what we're seeing here with the Denver change.
Yeah, what you're seeing is this. One of the things that snow, when it falls in the winter, becomes a reservoir of water for the summer. And what happens is, in a year when you have a lot of snowfall, you have a really green summer. A year where you don't have too much snowfall, you wind up with a dry summer. And so what you're seeing here are the effects of that. You can see 2 different years. And this is important for us because as our planet changes, and particularly as the Arctic sea ice retreats, we may wind up with more drought in North America. And that's why a lot of scientists are studying images like this and trying to develop better predictive models.
Time for the shout out. Which of these countries has the lowest birth rate? If you think you know it, shout it out. Is it Kenya, Cuba, Turkey, or Japan? You've got 3 seconds. Go. Japan actually has one of the lowest birth rates in the world. That's your answer, and that's your shout out.
Officials estimate that for every 1,000 people in Japan, there are only around 7.5 births each year. The political party that claimed victory in the country's recent election wants to increase that number, and it's willing to pay. You've kind of heard of cash for clunkers. You could think of this as like cash for kids. The idea is that more kids would mean more spending, which would then help out Japan's economy down the road. But some experts argue that the payouts won't help solve the country's financial problems. Kyung Law explores this issue.
At this Tokyo park, politics is pushing these parents to ponder procreation. Jin is an only child, but now his mom is thinking about giving him a brother or sister. It would help us with the second child, says Yoshiko Sato. She's talking about being paid for having kids. It's a campaign pledge by the new political party that stormed into power this week in Japan. The DPJ promises to pay parents the equivalent of $3,400 every year per child until high school. The goal of these payouts to parents? Boost Japan's birth rate, among the lowest in the world. The declining birth rate is a major drag on Japan's economy, compounded by a rapidly aging population. Japan's government says about a quarter of the country's population is over the age of 65. By 2050, that's expected to be 40%, far more crippling than the recession. But the cash for kids idea isn't being cheered on by some economists. Economist Yuri Okino wonders where the money will come from, and she says it's not an instant fix. We have to make it normal in Japan for a woman to raise a child and have a career, she says, something that even today is still not seen as the norm.
Critics say the payouts, while attractive as a campaign pledge, doesn't fix a significant problem for working families, the lack of daycare. Japan's government says 40,000 families are on waiting lists to get into daycare centers just like this one.
That means mothers like Hiromi Espinelli have to quit their jobs to take care of their children. Going back to work would be tough, she says, since there are so few daycare centers. While some money would be nice, she says, it doesn't make that problem disappear. Kyung Law, CNN, Tokyo.
Here at CNN Student News, we get a lot of shout-out requests. But teachers, the best way to get a shout-out is to send us a picture of you or your school. 2 ways to do it. Either by iReport, there's a link to that in the Spotlight section on our homepage today, or you can email the image to us. The address, cnnstudentnews.com. So get on it. Now, before we go, it has been said that you should never work with kids or animals. This might be why. News anchor was trying to host a segment on pet adoptions, but it didn't really get very far. Apparently, when Ginger the dog agrees to a face-to-face interview, she doesn't play around. As you can imagine, the 3-minute lickathon eventually showed up online, and it became an internet sensation, lickety-split. It's just terrible. Well, okay, speaking of the internet, please be sure to check out our Facebook page over the weekend. That is at the new URL, facebook.com/CNN Student News. We will be off on Monday for Labor Day, so enjoy the long weekend. We'll see you next week. I'm Carl Lazouse.